Hello everyone and welcome to the Burgess podcast, the show where we are opening up conversations about life at sea, discussing hot topics within the industry, as well as offering mental health support and promoting well-being for crew. We also have our very own in-house recruitment team, so if you or anyone you know is currently looking for a new position, please send your updated CV to recruitment@burgessyachts.com or check out our recruitment posts on Instagram @Burgess Yacht Crew. As many of you will know, we like to welcome a new year with a Healthy Living Week, and this year we're sitting down with Rachael Dickens, osteopath and founder of the English Osteopath clinics in Antibes and Monaco. We spoke to Rachael about her personal journey, which all started with a really serious back injury, which then led her to becoming a leading expert in osteopathy. Now, I, like many of us, struggle with pain caused by poor posture, so it was really interesting talking to Rachael and the work she does, which includes working with yacht crew. She talks about the common ailments suffered by yacht crew and gives tips on preventing injuries, managing stress, and basically encouraging us to put daily practices in place to maintain our overall physical and mental health, which is especially important in what can be a very physically demanding industry. So how are you, Rachael? How was your Christmas?
My Christmas was lovely. I went to the UK and it was absolutely joyful. Thank you. How was yours?
Yeah, really nice. Very, very restful, actually, which was normally spend a lot of time on the motorway. And this year we're spending more time at home, less time travelling. So hopefully more time working on my physical well-being, which you're talking about today. So thanks for joining us, because I appreciate you guys are pretty busy. Is this your busiest part of the season or more summer?
It's not actually. January is always a busy time for us because everything kind of stops towards the end of the year. And especially where I live down in Antibes, everybody goes home for Christmas, as we've just done. And they all kind of put everything off till January. And then you get all the New Year's resolutions. And that usually involves exercise, where people want to start the exercise at the same level where they stopped, be it 16 years ago. Hence, we get a lot of strains and problems. And no, our really busy time is in the summer, when there's more English speakers coming down here, and obviously we do an awful lot of work on the boats, on the crew and on the guests.
As you mentioned, January, so we're having a Healthy Living Week, and we normally cover exercising, nutrition, and we thought this year we'd actually come at it from a different angle and actually talk to people about injuries, common injuries and ailments that crew can work on to limit the damage done during exercising, etc. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background and how you started in osteopathy?
I started in osteopathy from being treated by an osteopath. I'd had this really bad accident which had left me paralysed, both legs. And it took 5 months really to get myself back to where I was before, or nearly where I was before, back working and everything. And really it was an osteopath that did the main thing, that took me from sort of lying in bed into walking out of her clinic. I was probably the worst patient she ever had. She probably still talks about me. It was an 1.5-hour session and I was in tears and screaming for most of it. But I actually managed to walk out and put weight on both legs, and that was the start. Before that, I was actually a publisher within the Daily Mail group, and I gave everything up because I wanted to do to somebody what somebody did to me. And what she didn't just give me back my legs, she gave me back my hope. Because before that, I was lying in bed thinking, I'll never be able to do this, I'll never be able to do that, and all of a sudden I was then able to rejoin my life. And so that's pretty much how I started.
And it can be life-changing, can't it? Because I've been to see osteopaths in the past, and I think the perception that people have about osteopaths is that they just treat bad backs, but it's bigger than that, isn't it? You deal with all sorts of ailments.
It is. Osteopathy is really badly promoted, I think, and we're all to blame for that, for sure. Most people come to us, their access point is through having a bad back, and then they actually find out what we do, i.e. we treat the whole body, and then they come back or they send their friends and families, work colleagues back. But yeah, we treat people and we treat pain. That's pretty much what we do.
And I've done a little bit of reading. I am a back pain sufferer, sadly, and I've been really interested to talk to you about back pain. Is not necessarily, it can be linked to another part of your body. It can be linked to your feet and the way you walk, or your knees. And
absolutely. And that's one of the main things that we do as osteopaths, is we diagnose. So somebody comes in with like a pain in their lower back, and depending on the questions that we then ask is like, when did it start? How does it feel? Describe the pain. Is it a shoot, stab, ache, spike, whatever? Or what makes it worse, what makes it better. So how we then try to work it out is like, so if you've got a pain on your shoulder, now, can you move your shoulder, and does that cause the pain to get worse or better? If it doesn't make any difference at all, now I don't want to worry people here, but if it doesn't make any difference at all with any structural movement, then it's not coming from the bones, the ligaments, the joints, the muscles. It's coming from within. So then we have to work out what structure within is causing the referred pain to the shoulder.
How did that pain get to your shoulder?
It's just an embryologic referral point. So the pain really isn't in your shoulder. We can't treat your shoulder and make the pain go away unless it actually is caused by something in your shoulder, something mechanical.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then we're going to send you away to get further tests with a specialist that is more relevant to that pain.
That is interesting. But that pain in your shoulder can also be linked to your back or your posture. Me sat on a chair all day, and if I'm hunched, that's going to have an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. We have what we call like a compensation or a cascade of pain. So the pain might start in your ankles, then go up to your knees and then your hips, but you actually only feel it when it's in your lower back.
Yeah.
Interestingly, we have this I could talk for hours on this. We have this thing called like the onion layer of pain. So imagine an onion with lots of skins on it. So people come in to see me because they've got a shoulder pain, and that's like the top skin. So imagine shedding that onion skin. I take that shoulder pain away, but underneath it is actually a back pain. So I can then take that back pain away, and then underneath that might be a knee pain. And really that just represents how pain actually comes on in the body. So I might have a knee pain, and it might be really, really irritating. But then I get another pain, I get a low back pain, and that I can't feel my knee pain anymore because you can only feel pain in one part of your body at any one time. So then that overlays with different pain, and then you get pain on top of pain on top of pain on top of pain, and then we have to take it away by layer by layer by layer by layer until we get down to maybe the original first ever pain. We take that away, and then you have this most amazingly wonderful body that everybody deserves.
Wow. And is that why it can take many treatments with an osteopath before you get to that stage?
Absolutely. But we can also use this to our advantage. So we usually can cope with pain unless it's this unrelenting pain that we don't know when it's going to come and how long it's going to last. So for example, with a headache, your headaches, you can feel it starting, and it's going to last for like 20 minutes until you take a Nurofen or whatever it is that you take. Or you might do some other pain, and you just know the pattern that it's going to take, and you can cope with that. What you can't cope with, and this is what all the pain clinics are there for, is the unrelenting pain. But using the fact that pain goes on in layers, and the fact that you can only feel pain in any one place at any one time, you can use this to your advantage. And if you pinch yourself, just kind of that soft pad just in front of the elbow on your forearm, if you do a really tight little pinch with your nails, it's a really high immediate pain, and then it comes down really, really quickly. So you can actually get rid of that awful unrelenting pain that you don't know what the pattern is by overriding it with a pain that you know the pattern is. And actually psychologically, that's super important.
So, sorry, you can get rid of a headache by pinching your arm?
Yeah, you can, any pain, if everybody does now and really pinches, it's a really high pain, you know where it is, and it comes down really quickly. That will take away any other pain. However, if it's a headache that's going on for 20 minutes, that means you've got to pinch yourself quite a lot, and that's not advised. But this is really to override an unrelenting pain that you don't know what the pattern is, because that really makes changes to your psychological well-being. It's just a little tip.
That's incredible. I mean, that's very, very clever, and something I'm definitely going to try. So you've worked as an osteopath with Yacht Crew as well, haven't you?
Yeah, because of where I'm based here, I've got 2 clinics, one in Antibes, one in Monaco, both near the ports. We see an awful lot of people that are working on the yachts.
And what are the common injuries or issues that you see among Yacht Crew?
Well, firstly, I have to say they are, in general, a really healthy population. They're young, they're active, they're fit, and they eat well. Okay, so they're and they overall they're generally a very happy, and they're all, they've got jobs as well, so that says a lot about their whole general demeanor. So they're a really lovely population to work with. What they do is they make the same mistakes again and again and again, and they do things too quickly, and they do things without waiting for other people to be there, mainly lifting injuries, and then careless things like leaving hatches open, and then somebody then falls down it. And we've even even had cases where then somebody falls down on top of the person that's already fallen in. And we're having jumping off boats, jumping into water, smacking themselves in water, which can almost be like a concrete level when you're going at the wrong angle. And mainly also repetitive injuries, especially during sanding season, which we're just coming up for actually. January, February is sanding season. And it's almost inhumane to expect one person to do the same repetitive motion for 8 hours a day. And also in the interior crew as well, a lot of the straining over, a lot of the beds are maybe against a wall and they have to really strain over to tuck all the sheets in. So we have just sort of very odd injuries that come from working on the yachts.
A lot of the medical claims that we see come through are carpal tunnel, and I'm assuming that a lot of that is with chefs, and so that is a repetitive strain injury, isn't it? What can crew do to help either ease or prevent carpal tunnel?
Okay, yeah, carpal tunnel, absolutely. It's a repetitive strain injury, and yes, especially with chefs. But also, another reason for carpal tunnel is people, especially crew, on their phones too much. With carpal tunnel, it's a repetitive strain injury. What you have to do is rest and relax. So people don't, because they're going on their phones and they're using their little thumbs. And if you pretend you're on your phone and you hold on to the bit that we just pinched, actually, which we did earlier, just the fleshy bit just by your elbow, and you start moving your fingers, you can feel where all the tendons go up. And every time that you're on your phone doing that, you are not resting those tendons. So with carpal tunnel, what you really need to do is you need to rest and relax. Speak to somebody. It's quite a simple thing. You can speak to somebody on a video, a Zoom call, if you're not anywhere that can speak to you in your own language. And you can also get braces to stop you doing stuff. So especially for carpal tunnel, what I recommend people do is they buy like a wrist brace, which has like a little metal strip in it, and you wear it at night, especially because sometimes at night you might bend at your wrist against your head, and that's kind of how you sleep on your pillow, and that stretches that whole tendon that goes from your wrist to your elbow. So what we need to do is we need to be able to rest it at least for like 7 or 8 hours at night, and by putting it in like a wrist brace with a metal strip, not too tight because you don't want to cut all your circulation off, just so that if you had your wrist in front of you with your thumb facing your nose, you can't kind of wave it too much. You can just do a tiny little bit of flexion extension, and that's all you need to do. And then you keep it in the rest brace every time you don't need to use your hand. And that's a really good way of resting it.
So yeah, overnight treatments is a good idea. And you mentioned earlier about the stews and the changing of bedding. Is posture quite a big issue among your crew?
It's a huge issue. When you walk around a boat, let's say because you're living on a boat, you literally walk 5 steps and then you have to stop, go through a door, go down some steps, walk another 10 steps, stop, turn, go up some steps, go through a door. And you're never actually doing this thing that I do every day, which is I have to walk. I have to walk from my car to my clinic. And it's a good 600-700 meters, and when you're walking, everything is in a rhythm and all of your things are pumping up or pumping down, and that helps get rid of a lot of inflammation, and it helps exercise all the muscles. Walking is probably the best thing that you can do. And yacht crew, they walk a lot, hey, they do a lot of steps, but they're only ever walking for like 2 seconds, and then they stop, change direction, then walk, then stop, then walk, then stop. And so that is really affecting all of their postural muscles for sure.
So is this why it's important for crew to build in an exercise routine into their day?
Absolutely. We have to make habits, okay? And the easiest way to make a habit is to attach it to another habit. And we all have habits, whether they're good or bad. I mean, I brush my teeth every day, which I hope everybody else does. I make my bed as soon as I get up in the morning. I make my bed. That's a habit. Then I go and have a cup of tea. That's my habit. So if you're thinking, right, let's make a ritual. Let's just do 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something small. Attach it to something you normally do. Now, bearing in mind, yacht crews sometimes run early, sometimes run late, so you might have to have a different structure for your different programs. And then say, right, every morning after I've brushed my teeth, I will do a 5-minute stretch, a 5-minute meditation, a 5-minute this, that, or the other. Or twice a week, I will go and do a 20-minute proper stretch or yoga session. YouTube is amazing for things like this. You can just say, 10-minute HIIT workout or 10-minute meditation or 5-minute yoga stretch, and it will come up with lots of free little classes for you to join.
So very quickly, we're also going to be having some of those on our Instagram at Burgess Yacht Crew Instagram, because you're very kindly going to be doing a quick routine that crew can do for stretching. And we've also got a personal trainer and yoga, just quick sessions. They all make a difference, don't they?
Absolutely. All these little micro things really, 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 really add up. And another thing is on a boat. This is for me how I see it. You're living in a really small community, okay, and which you can adapt, alter, or change. Even if you're the greenest stew or deckhand on board, you can be the creator of your own universe, okay? So you can set the tone for how you want your little community to be, and you can make this ritual and say, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do 10-minute meditation on the deck at X o'clock in the morning or whatever. Get a buddy if you can find somebody else to join you. And before you know it, maybe other people will join you. And you have this opportunity, which I don't have because I live in a massive community called France. You have this opportunity to actually be the creator of your own community. And I think that is a hugely powerful thing. And I think people should actually use it and abuse it much more often.
I love that. I love that. And also, I think once one person starts that routine and that habit, that daily routine of exercising, it's very hard to watch that without wanting to take part, without wanting to join in. It's sometimes you just need that instigator, that person to just take charge and set something up, and everyone wants to join in.
Absolutely. And you can just write down your kind of list of what you want to achieve, your list of meaningful purposes or whatever, and then just go and do it and not have to wait for somebody else. And especially with the hierarchy in the yachts as well, you think you might not be able to do it because you're not the captain or whatever, but you can do it. And you just have to feel that, yes, you've got that power, that you can go out on the deck and do your 5 minutes or 10 minutes of stretch, meditation or exercise. And before you know it, you can change the whole culture of the boat.
Love that. Love that. And also, is it fair to say, is it correct to say that stress, obviously crew, do experience a lot of stress, tight schedules, demanding roles. Can stress manifest as physical pain?
Absolutely. 100% yes. And crew do have huge amounts of stress because they're living away from their normal management caring systems. They have the physical stress. They have the fact that they're not sleeping. They're in really hot environments. They're away from all their friends and families. There might be bullying on board. You never know. They might not be getting on with some of the rest of the crew. And if it goes bad, it can go really, really bad. And all of this type of thing, you don't have to be crew to have it manifest as physically. This is kind of what we do as osteopaths. We have to find out where the pain is coming from. And you normally could have dealt with it, but now you can't deal with it because there's something else that's going on, and it could be an emotional or some sort of spiritual type of stress.
Personally speaking, so I mentioned earlier that I struggle with back pain, and I'm very guilty, Rachel, confession o'clock here, I'm very guilty of not dealing with it and just fighting through the day. But when is it important for crew to come see you?
Bearing in mind that they are pretty much a young and a fit population, a lot of the times your pains and your aches and your stresses and your strains, they do go away. So when it hasn't gone away in what you feel would be a reasonable time, because we've all had these type of things before, if it's still lingering and it's there, and it's just not going away, or it's getting significantly worse, that's when you should really call. You can call us, we can have Zoom calls, or go and find somebody on shore that can understand what you're talking about and get yourself treated.
And what about, we've spoken previously on other calls about the value of continuation of care and the health history and how important it is for you to understand that crew members' health history in order to be able to help them.
Absolutely. And I think for me, this is the most important thing or message to give to crew is people just come into my clinic and they sit down and they think that I can diagnose them, and it's kind of like, well, I wish I could, but I'm not that clever. The only way I diagnose people and the only way anybody diagnoses people is with information. So we need the information and then we can sort of work it through into a differential diagnosis. So how do we get the information? And I do this myself because I live in France. And so, if I have to see a different doctor, even though I do speak French, if I have to see a different doctor, I actually have one sheet of A4 paper. I've got my name, my date of birth, and I've also got exactly how old I am, because never assume that a doctor is a mathematician. And then I say, what has actually happened to me? So, for example, as I spoke before, I had this big accident and I was paralyzed. So that comes at, the age of 26 7. I had this accident. This was my diagnosis. I was paralyzed 5 months. And then I write on it, for the next 4 years, I had back pain, which I managed by, exercise, stretch, da, 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 da. And then I put everything else as actually happened to me, the fact of what's happened to my parents, any genetic disease or diagnosis, any other injuries that I've had that, weren't just scrapes or things, anything that needed any hospitalization or any physical therapy. And I've written that down. I've written it down in a timeline with also how I felt, if that was relevant, if I went through a phase of depression, any depressive drugs that I was on and how long that lasted for, or if I went through anything else, what type of drugs I was on. Let's say I was pre-diabetic for a time or something, then until that got sorted out, health and lifestyle. So I can write down all these type of things so that when I go to a doctor, I can just give them this sheet and they at a glance can see things that are relevant. Now, I had somebody in the clinic the other day and they had a problem with their hip, and they told me this, and I was the first person they were seeing about it, and they were literally leaving the next day. Now, after extensive talk, I actually found out that they'd had a knee problem about 6 years before. And actually, they didn't think that was relevant to tell me straight away. But for me, as a structural therapist or manual therapist, that's really important because that never got fixed properly. And then that referred up to with the change and the compensation of ambulance or movement. And so if I'd actually seen that at a glance, I wouldn't have had to waste 20 minutes of the session, of a very short session time. We're very time poor, just talking about other things, trying to get through to what could have actually caused it. So in order to get a diagnosis, you have to give the right information or give as much information, and whichever specialist you will be able to pick out really, really quickly the things that they feel is relevant to how you're presenting or what pain you're presenting with. And have this in a folder and update it regularly. And then also in this folder or your online folder or your cloud isn't it? Also in your cloud, have all of your scans and everything you've had, all your x-rays, all your scans, a copy of any medication or anything like that you've been on. And then you can have it at a glance and you can pull it all off and you don't have to search for it. It's super, super important, and it stops a misdiagnosis.
And this is useful because crew are, seeing doctors or osteopaths or, any kind of medical advice on a global scale. They're not going to one doctor who has, like my GP, has my medical history.
And your GP has your medical history. So he already has that written down, or she has that written down. Exactly. And then they can send you off for tests, then they get the results of the tests, and then they go back. But crew might be one day one place, 2 days later they might be in a different place. So to get some continuity, the crew has to be the person that collates all this information. Very, very occasionally, I do get crew that send me all of their details before their appointment, and I applaud this. I think, oh, hooray, somebody thinks the same as me. And they send all that stuff, and it's great because it gives me a massive overview, so I know not so much what I should be looking for, but I know what I don't need to worry about. And that really, really, really helps me to get a really good diagnosis. And it's all about the diagnosis. As long as we've got a diagnosis, we get the treatment. It doesn't matter what treatment is, the treatment will work, but it's getting the right diagnosis, which is hugely important.
So like their own logbook, keep their own health logbook.
Absolutely. And keep it on a little file in your cloud or on your phone or whatever, so it's really accessible, and keep it updated. And also in this, just put your emotional feeling as well. Well, at that time, my parents were divorcing, between this age and this age, because that actually helps us to get a real idea of everything that's happening in your body, because emotional stress does play a lot in everything else. So it just gives us the most information so we can get the best diagnosis.
And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where, your physical pain can be manifested either from stress or from an injury that you had 6 years ago. It doesn't mean that you've hurt your shoulder. It could be connected to something else. And if you have all that information to hand straight away, that helps you.
Absolutely. So with the pain, it can actually be coming from another part of your body, but also you could have that pain and you could have actually been living with that pain quite happily because you're able to support that pain, and then something else is going on in your life, like you may have lost your job, you've just become single or whatever, and now your emotional side is more fragile and you feel the pain more. So then somebody like me, I was thinking, well, you haven't done anything, you haven't lifted anything badly, you haven't pushed anything, there's no necessarily recent ligament tears, but actually we find, oh yeah, 2 years ago you had this, but you had the pain, but you're able to support it. Whereas now you can't, because something else has gone on and made you all out of balance. And so, so stuff like that is really super important for us, again, to get the best diagnosis.
And also aging, let's face it. I know firsthand that aging makes the ailments are exacerbated with aging, and crew also age. So it's important to bear that in mind, that something that you could cope with in your early 20s, when you're in your early 30s, may suddenly start hurting more.
Oh, tell me about it. I actually do a workshop on future proofing, all about to help people when they're aging, to help keep themselves physically so much better. And one thing we always talk about, and it could be relevant here, is I say, if you do this now, which you don't want to do because it's painful and you don't want to do, and it's a block that you kind of have to force yourself to do, just imagine yourself in 5 years' time. Just imagine you in 5 years' time thanking the you now for doing it. So this person, so go and get your ritual sorted, your little 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, your routine. And you know what? The person that you will become in 2 years' time is really going to thank you for getting that sorted, because in 2 years' time, they're going to be happier, healthier, much more flexible.
Oh, love that. So just to close, Rachel, what are your top tips? You've got your health logbook. What else?
I've got my health logbook. I've got my wean from the screen, get off your phones for sure, and ask for help.
Perfect. Ask for help. And if somebody listening needs to ask for help, how do they get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me. Our clinic website address is EnglishOsteopath.com. Calls are free to us. You can WhatsApp us. We're quite happy to sit down on the phone and give you a chat. We'll find you somebody locally if we feel that's relevant for you, or try to advise you to where to go next.
Fabulous. And remind us again, where are your offices based?
We're in Antibes and in Monaco.
Antibes and Monaco. Perfect for Yacht Crew. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I think I've taken a few tips there myself. Definitely going to try and work on some daily habits to try and improve posture. Sitting at a desk is not good.
It's not good.
No, I've actually been thinking about a standing desk. A lot of people talk about standing desks, so I think I might try and look at that. But thank you so much, Rachel. It's been a really interesting chat, and I'm sure we could carry on talking for another 2 hours about this, but if anyone has any questions, we'll include your details in our show notes. And people can see you at Burgess Yacht Crew Instagram page, and you'll be sharing some movements that can help crew.
We will indeed, and thank you so much for asking us to join in, and a big hello to all the crew listening.
Fabulous. Thanks, Rachel.